Hello students, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. In today's video, we are going to discuss about good news coming from the Ministry of External Affairs, where it has stated that the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, one of the most notable pilgrimage journey taken by hundreds of Indian pilgrims, is going to resume soon after a hiatus of almost 4 years. So let us try to understand what has led to the resumption of this yatra and what is this yatra all about. So first of all, as per the statement released by the Ministry of External Affairs of India, it has stated that the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra is going to resume soon after year 2020. If you talk about this particular yatra or resumption of this particular yatra, it is seen as one of the steps that was taken by both India and China since last few months, where a larger rapprochement seems to have been reached between both the countries. Both the countries, their ties between them has nosedived since 2020 after the clashes that were reported in the border areas. Now, initially when the yatra was stopped, the reason given by the Chinese authority was due to the COVID-19 pandemic. However, it was during this time also we see a continuous deterioration of relations between both countries, and that is why even when the COVID-19 pandemic was over, even when there was no risk of the coronavirus, the yatra did not resume. So this is how we have to understand the background of this entire issue. Now, this resumption of yatra, as we are talking about, is nothing but an example of thaw in the ties that both India and China is currently witnessing. For example, if we talk about the both neighbors, the ties between them had nosedived. It had deteriorated to a significant extent after a number of border skirmishes recorded in year 2020 along the line of actual control. We know that we have a border dispute with China in the Aksai Chun region, that is the Ladakh region, and that is where we have seen a lot of clashes between the People's Liberation Army and the Indo-Tibetan border police securing the border from India's side. One such a snapshot you can see in this particular image, where you can see the Chinese soldiers clashing with the ITB personnel. The most significant of the clash took place on June 15, 2020 in the Galwan Valley of Ladakh. Galwan Valley is situated along the line of actual control through which Galwan River passes through. However, since 2024, we have seen that both countries have made a lot of attempt to improve the ties, and they signed a pact also in the last October, where both India and China agreed that they will disengage at two major regions along the border, that is the Demchok, through which the Indus River passes through and enters India, and then you have the Depsang, that is in the southern part of what you can call as the Ladakh region, or to the south of what we can call as Karakoram range. So both from the Demchok and Depsang, countries have agreed that they will disengage, and that will be the last two remaining friction point of the border where peace can be restored in the coming time. And this development came in the background of discussion that took place between the Premier of China, Xi Jinping, and the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, on the sidelines of Kazan Summit. Kazan Summit was actually the BRICS Summit that took place between 22 to 24th October in 2024, and Kazan is a city in the Russia. So this meeting between both leaders paved the way for further disengagement and improvement in the relationship between the both countries. Now, after the meeting between two leaders, then further we have seen a meeting between the special representatives from both countries. From India's side, it was the NSA Ajit Doval, and from the Chinese side, it was the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. So, meeting between these two personalities or delegates also took place, and it was during the meeting of special representatives, that is when the first time resumption of the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra was formally discussed, and then both of the both of the representatives agreed that we should try to resume this yatra as soon as possible. Now then, in the next month, that is in the January of this year 2025, we also see a visit by Foreign Secretary of India Vikram Misri to China, where he met Wang Yi, again the Foreign Minister of China, and in this meeting in January, in principle, both countries agreed to resume the yatra again, and as per the MEA, they have stated that very soon a formal announcement with the details how people can apply for the yatra, how people will be selected, pilgrimages will be selected, and how this entire journey will take place, that will be made public very, very soon. Now, what it seems from this entire development, that both the countries, you talk about New Delhi and Beijing, want to get this sticking point out of way before the next special representative meet, which is going to take place in the Delhi in year 2025 itself. So resumption of yatra will be a very important development in the overall resumption of the ties between India and China. Now, when we talk about the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, let us try to briefly understand the geography of this area as well. Now, when we talk about Kailash Mansarovar, we are talking about the Mount Kailash, which is the peak of what you can call as extended part of Ladakh range itself, situated along the border of India, Nepal and Tibet. So, Mount Kailash is the place where the pilgrims from India undertake journey, and this is very significant from the religious perspective, not only from the Hinduism perspective but also from Buddhism, Jainism, as well as the born religion of China. If we talk about, they also revere and worship Mount Kailash. So very important place from the religious significance. Now if you look at the Mansarovar Yatra itself, Mansarovar is the name of a lake which in Tibet locally is referred as Mapam Yumtso. As we can see, it is a beautiful lake with a blue water you can see, and in the background you can see the Mount Kailash standing here. So in the foothills or near the foothills of Mount Kailash, that is where you have the Lake Mansarovar or Mapam Yumtso. It is a Lake Mansarovar also through which you have the origin of a very important river of India, that is the Satluj River, which is tributary of river Indus. So if we talk about the Mansarovar lake, it is an example of high altitude lake, high altitude because it is situated at the height of around 4,600 meters. So a high altitude freshwater lake near Mount Kailash. If we talk about the region where it is situated in the Nagari prefecture of the TAR. TAR stands for Tibet Autonomous Region. So prefecture, we can understand, is similar to the state or provinces in India. So in the Nagari state of Tibetan Autonomous Region, at the altitude of 4,600 meters, we see Lake Mansarovar. And both the lake as well as we can see the adjacent mountain, that is almost 6,638 meters high, a very high altitude mountain. Both are considered as sacred in many religions such as Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism and Tibetan born region. And that is why every year hundreds of pilgrims make arduous journey to the region each year, and their main goal is to trek to Mount Kailash. They try to reach and trek to Mount Kailash. We'll talk about routes also later. And then when they reach Mount Kailash, they also circumambulate, participate in circumambulation. That means they complete one revolution around the Mount Kailash. And if we try to now understand the significance of this place in the terms of Hinduism, we know that Mount Kailash is revered as the sacred place because it is considered as abode of Lord Shiva, one of the major god in Hinduism. Apart from that, if we talk about Buddhism as well, in Buddhism, Mount Kailash is also sometimes referred as Kangri Rinpoche, and Buddhists believe that it is the abode of Buddha Demchok, who is also known as Demchok or Chakra Samvara, and it symbolizes the ultimate bliss. So in other way also we can understand Buddhism. In Buddhism, it is believed that Mount Kailash is akin to the father, and the Lake Mansarovar that you have at the foothill of Mount Kailash is akin to the mother. So that is the overall, we can say, similarities between the Buddhism and Hinduism. For both of them, it is secret. Now, not only them, also if you look at in the Jainism, it is considered as sacred because it is believed that the Jain, one of the Jain Tirthankars, Rishabhnath, he actually was in the Mount Kailash, is where actually he got salvation. He actually got out from the cycle of birth and death. So that is why it is also considered as sacred in Jainism. And in Jainism, Mount Kailash is referred by Mount Ashtapad. So from Hinduism perspective, Buddhism perspective, Jainism perspective, it is a very sacred and important place. Now, the question is how to undertake Kailash Mansarovar Yatra. So first of all, we have to understand you cannot undertake this pilgrimage journey by yourself through some private operators. It is organized by the Ministry of External Affairs itself, and that is the only way through which you can register and take participation in this journey. So it is organized every year between the month of June to September, and overall if you talk about the duration of journey, it is somewhere between 23 to 25 days. And the eligibility of this journey, if you try to understand, it is open. You can register on the Ministry of External Affairs website for anyone who is holding Indian passport, who is displaying medical and physical fitness, because that is checked before one can undertake the journey, and who is above the age of 18 and under the age of 70. So if you are fulfilling these three criteria, then you are eligible to participate in the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra. Now obviously, every year Ministry of External Affairs have fixed seat that this much number of pilgrims they can allow in the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, and many times the number of applications is much more greater or higher than the available seats. So that is why MEA participate in what you can call as a draw of the lots. Lottery kind of system is there where the draw of lots is conducted, and then finally through the limited slot the candidates are selected in this manner. And once you are selected, you have deposited a total cost of the journey, which comes out to be somewhere above 2 lakhs, so between 2 lakh to 3 lakh. That has been the average cost of the journey in year 2020, when the last time the yatra was organized by MEA. So if you try to look at the route that is available for the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, you have two routes. One route is through the Tibet, Nepal and Uttarakhand border. Here you have a pass that is called as the Lipu Lake Pass. So as we can see, this is the Lipu Lake Pass. So pilgrims can take this particular route, they pass through the Lipu Lake Pass and then can reach here. As you can see, this is the Mansarovar Lake. So from Lipu Lake Pass, it is situated at a very close distance of only 50 kilometers. But the catch here is that this is a very arduous journey. The route here is very uneven in nature. It passes through the high mountains and terrains, and that is why it involves 200 kilometers of trekking. You cannot use any kind of vehicles here. 200 kilometers of journey you have to undertake just by trekking itself. And this area, if you try to understand, the altitude of Lipu Lake Pass itself is about 5,100 meters. So a very high altitude pass. So that is one alternative. Now, if we talk about the journey through Lipu Lake Pass, it is largely organized by Ministry of External Affairs with the help of Kumaon Mandal Vikas Nigam, which is a tourist organization of the Uttarakhand region. And apart from that, also it is supported by the ITBP, the Indo-Tibetan Border Police, the border guarding forces, which are given the responsibility of guarding the Indo-China border throughout the entire area. So ITBP, Kumaon Mandal Vikas Nigam, and overall under the guidance of Ministry of External Affairs, these are the organizations responsible for your well-being here if you undertake the journey through this area. Once you cross India side, you enter into the Tibetan side, and there you have the regional authorities, local authorities of Tibetan Autonomous Region. So they ensure your well-being in that area. Now the other alternative route you have, because this has been the traditional route. If you talk about Lipu Lake Pass, it has been operational since 1981 till 2020, when the last time Yatra was organized. So before that also, it has been always an ancient route to connect the people of Tibet and the people of India. So it has a historical significance as well. The other route you have is via the Nathula Pass, which is situated in the state of Sikkim. It is a kind of tri-junction pass, we can see, because it is situated along the border of Sikkim, that is part of India. Then you have Bhutan, and on the other side you have the TAR, Tibetan Autonomous Region. Now the Nathula Pass overall, if you try to understand, the journey through this pass is relatively easier, because here you do not have to trek so much as in the case of Lipu Lake Pass. You just have to cross this pass, which is also at a slightly lower elevation of 4,310 meters. And once you cross this pass, what you have to undertake is a long journey, because if you look from here to here, Mansarovar to Nathula, the total distance is about 1,500 kilometers. But the good thing is that this entire area is kind of have the availability of roadways, so you can use the vehicles and then reach directly at the foothills of Mount Kailash as such. So relatively easier journey, but longer journey. It is relatively much more difficult journey, but the time taken is relatively short, because the distance here is just 50 kilometers. Now, when the journey is undertaken through the Nathula Pass, it is organized by the Sikkim Tourism Development Corporation from the India side, and again the Tibetan authorities on the Tibetan side. So that is the two available route. The Nathula route was opened very recently, actually in the year 2015, after the discussion and dialogue between the Indian and Chinese delegates. Before that, this route was closed as such. So it is possible that when the resumption of the Mansarovar Yatra occurs or takes place, both these routes will be open. But again, we'll have to wait and watch and see that how exactly MEA will explain this entire details of this entire resumption. Now the question comes that is it possible to take a private journey to Mount Kailash? And the answer is that if you talk about the two official routes we have discussed, that is the Lipu Lake route or the Nathula route, no private operators functions in the two official route. That means we'll have to mandatorily go through the Ministry of External Affairs and registration on its portal. However, the private route is possible if you go first of all to Nepal, and from Nepal you undertake a journey. In theory, this route has been accessible to Indians since 2023, when the China reopened its border with Nepal. But again, there is a lot of difficulties because especially for Indian citizens, getting of visa, Chinese visa and permit requirement that is needed there is very tough and difficult to get, as well as the cost or expenditure, because China imposes a heavy fee on this border. It means that this cost can be also a limiting factor in the pilgrim's decision to undertake this journey. So because of all these negative influences, negative factors, only few peoples have likely availed this option, that means undertaking this journey through the Nepal. Now also many times when people are facing difficulty and are not able to bear such a high cost or duration of journey, for them chartered flight operation also was undertaken through the Nepalganj region, that is situated in Nepal, through which people can do the aerial darshan of Mount Kailash, Lake Mansarovar and Rakshastal. This is from here you have the river Satluj that originates from. And even government of India has recently decided that they are going to open what they call as a Mount Kailash viewing spot. Mount Kailash viewing spot basically will be opened in the Dharchula region that you can see on the map here. Dharchula is very close to the Mount Kailash, as you can see, and from Dharchula region then people can do the aerial darshan of Mount Kailash. So it will be developed as a Mount Kailash viewing point. So these are the other options that you have apart from the two major routes organized by the MEA we have discussed. That is all about this particular video. If you like the video, please hit the like button, share it with your aspirants, as well as subscribe to our channel for more such helpful content. Thank you very much.